Oh, hello. Today it is that time again. It is time for us to talk about most anticipated releases. This is the third of the 3 videos that I had planned to talk about 2022 releases. And yeah, I feel like there's more on my radar for the rest of the year, August onwards, I should say, than I thought that there might be, but still not as many as there has been in prior years. I think some of this is due to shenanigans with printing availability. A lot of release dates are kind of getting moved around because of that, so I think that's some of it, but I don't know. Anyway, for whatever it's worth, not as many as I feel like I normally have to talk about, but still plenty. We're gonna go by month, and I'm gonna tell you the books that are on my radar for the rest of the year. I should note that in terms of new releases, I tend to focus on mystery, romance, fantasy, sci-fi, and nonfiction. I'm not as much of like a literary new release kind of gal. So yeah, FYI, just those are the kinds of books I tend to focus on. So let's dive in and start with August, shall we? Okay, and for each of these months, I'm going to focus on first any books that I've read that are getting released that month, and then I will talk about books that I have not yet read that I'm also anticipating for that month. So for August, books that I have read that I'm excited to tell you about. First of all, Quarter to Midnight by Karen Rose. This is the first in a new trilogy of hers, which is romantic suspense. This particular one is corruption on the police force kind of focused. These always have romances. Obviously, they're romantic suspense, but they are pretty focused or heavy on the suspense element. So I think if you are not interested in a suspense, then this is probably not for you. And I would say this one wasn't my favorite. I think I just didn't fully connect with the trope combo, but quality-wise, I think it was, good, solid. If you like Karen Rose, I think worth reading. I always look forward to her books, and I definitely still have a lot of her backlist that I need to get to as well. Stay Awake by Megan Golden comes out on August 9th, and I thought that this was such a fun, high premise thriller. Kind of cements Megan Golden as an auto read for me. I don't know that she's an auto buy yet, but I'm always interested. I've read 3 of her books now, and all 3 of them, I thought, even when I had some problems with the execution, I felt like they were interesting books with interesting things to say. This particular one is kind of a take on like a Memento type story where our main character wakes up and has memory loss and isn't quite sure what is going on, but the only note that she has from herself is that she needs to try to stay awake. And we get a dual perspective from her and then from some police detectives who are investigating a crime that she may or may not have committed. So I liked getting a detective POV. We don't always get those in thrillers, and I thought I personally liked that. This one felt a little bit more like a mystery. Like this felt like a true mystery thriller, which I know is not for everyone, but for me, that really worked as a vibe. And yeah, I have some execution problems with this, but overall I just thought it was really fun. It's a really fun premise, and I think it lives up to the promise of the premise. Then Storm Echo also comes out on August 9th, which is the newest release from Nalini Singh in the Side Changeling universe. And you guys know I'm absolute trash for that series. I have a literal actual podcast about it. I'm also on a panel interviewing Nalini Singh on the day of the release, so you guys should definitely check that out. I'll try to remember to include the information about that below. But yeah, I love this series. We get some big macro plot payoff in this one that I thought was very satisfying, and I thought the romance was also good. So all around, it was a really good entry. I'm excited for people to get their hot little hands on it. Also, my cat has started rubbing the tripod with his little face, so I'm going to try to keep you from swaying too much. Another entry in a long-running and beloved series from me, Ruby Fever by Alona Andrews. This is the 6th book overall in the Hidden Legacy kind of overall world, and it is the final book of the 2nd trilogy in that world. I think we got some really good macro plot payoff. I called a lot of it, but it felt satisfying watching it come together. I think that this was fun. It was a good showcase of what I think Alona Andrews does best. Yeah, this was just so good. Don't start with this one, go back to Burn for me, but it was really good. I'm excited for people to read it. And then Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Listen, if you didn't like The Love Hypothesis, you won't like this. If you did like The Love Hypothesis, I think you'll like this. I don't think this one is quite as good as The Love Hypothesis. I had some execution issues, and there was a few sort of like truly straining credulity moments that I could mostly roll with. I think some people will have a problem with. But overall, if you like STEM-based romances, if you like nerdy romance, if you like a Grump Sunshine kind of situation, I think you hate me, but you actually love me, kind of like a Darcy Elizabeth dynamic, then I recommend this. I thought it was very fun. Okay, and then for ones that I haven't yet read, These Fleeting Shadows by, let's see, Kate Alice Marshall, I believe is like a spooky house kind of mystery. And it seems like it may be YA, which I didn't realize at first, but yeah, anyway, this one just seemed secluded. It seemed very vibe heavy. So I'm intrigued, I'm interested, I want to read this one. Also on the 9th is The Monsters We Defy by, let's see here, Leslie Penelope. Ooh, kitty, what are you eating? My cat just ate something. I don't know what it was, so I hope it was not bad for him. He's licking his little chops like he enjoyed it, so good for him. Okay, The Monsters We Defy. Another mystery. I think that this is a historical mystery if I'm remembering correctly. I'm gonna double check to make sure I'm not totally off base here. I typed in The Kingsters We Defy, which I feel like would be a very different book, but one that I would read. Yeah, okay. I remember the tagline of this one intrigued me. A woman able to communicate with spirits must assemble a ragtag crew to pull off a daring heist to save her community in this timely and dazzling historical fantasy that weaves together African American folk magic, history, and romance. And it's set in 1925 DC. So I just think that this sounds like my kind of book. So I'm excited to give that a try. Also, we have Girl Forgotten by Karen Slaughter coming out on August 23rd, and that is one that I'm intrigued by. I read the first one in the series, which was called Pieces of Her, and I had some issues with it, but I was very intrigued. This is the sequel to it, so I want to try her again, and I've decided I think that this is going to be the one I try her again with. The other big one on August 23rd is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Listen, you don't need me to hype up this book to you. It is dark academia fantasy. I am very excited because I really love the Poppy War trilogy from her. I'm excited to get a new world from her, so excited for that. I will be ready to read that at the end of August. And then, oh my, we have 4 different books that I am looking forward to on the 30th of August. So first of all, we have The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the finale in her trilogy. That's sort of, I think that we were describing it as Knives Out meets the Westing Game. I think that's what the marketing was kind of describing it as, which I think is pretty accurate. It's YA, there is a love triangle, so if you don't like that, be warned. But I have been holding off on reading the sequel because I was waiting for this final book to come out so that I can binge them together. So that comes out on the 30th. Also, Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston comes out on the 30th. And I'm really excited for that because I'm one of the many people who really enjoyed the first book in that series. Really well done, middle grade fantasy, Harry Potter-esque in the sense of like magic, a secret magical society set in our world. It's that kind of setup. I would compare this in some ways to Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, but I like this version of it better. I don't know. It also has a lot of themes about class in it, which I thought were really interesting. Anyway, I think the first one ended in a very intriguing place, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Excited for that. Also on the 30th is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, which is it sounds like it's a seclusion thriller, mystery thriller kind of situation. A family has gathered together for their grandma's 80th birthday at their island estate or something. I don't know, but it sounds like it's going to get murdery. It sounds like it's going to be isolated, and those are buzzwords for me. So I'm gonna give it a try for sure. Okay, and then we have How to Survive Your Own Murder by Danielle Valentine, which is a YA mystery thriller, and it's a unique premise. I don't know that I've ever seen this premise before. Basically, our main character's sister was murdered a year ago. The main character was the main witness to that murder, and this is following her during the trial. And it seems like things are gonna get twisty and things are not as she thinks they are. She may think she saw something, but she probably, I'm guessing she didn't actually see what she thinks she saw. So I'm very intrigued by the premise of this. This sounds like Amara kind of premise, and I do really love YA mystery, so I'm down to, I've never tried something from her before. I'm not sure if she's a new author or what, but I'm down to try it. Okay, and then moving into September. Okay, we only actually have 4 books in September. So we have The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. It's a Carrie retelling, like a YA horror. I wasn't necessarily that sold on the YA horror book I've already read from Tiffany D. Jackson. I can see the cover, but I can't remember the title. White Smoke. I wasn't that into that, but this is a really cool premise, and I liked the actual writing in that book, so I'm intrigued. I think I'm gonna wait for some reviews to come out for this one, but I'm interested. We'll see. It's on my radar. Let's put it that way. Then we have Desperation in Death by J.D. Robb, aka Nora Roberts, aka my queen goddess, light of my reading life. I love Nora Roberts. I love the In Death series. I'm fully caught up. This is book number 55. Don't start with this book. You can either go back to the beginning, or there was one, I think it was number 53 I read last year, that I felt like people could start with that one. It stood alone enough that I think you could read it if you want to get a sense of the vibe, but it is sci-fi police procedurals with a heavy romance element. So, love it. Can't wait for the next one. Oh, and then we also have Marple by Agatha Christie. This is actually 12 new mysteries featuring Miss Marple, written by 12 different authors. I'm most excited to read the ones from Ruth Ware, Alyssa Cole, and maybe Ellie Griffiths or Val McDermott. So I'm really excited to get into this one and see, you know, I'm gonna try to not hold them. I'm excited to see Miss Marple executed by a different person, and I'm hoping that few of them try to imitate Christie herself and just kind of do their own thing. We'll see though. And then the last one, it comes out on the 29th of September, and the tagline, it's called The Family Game. It's by Catherine Steadman, and the tagline is, "A rich, eccentric family, a time-honored tradition, or a lethal game of survival. One woman finds out what it really takes to join the 1% in this riveting psychological thriller." So I'm thinking that this sounds like some kind of allegorization of the rich and how awful they are. And I'm down for that. It also sounded like it could be kind of like an isolation-y type situation. It also seems like there's a game element. So I don't know. I have an arc of this and we'll see how it goes, but I was intrigued by that setup, so we'll see. Moving into October, I've already read 2 arcs for things that come out in October. So first of all, I read Pretty Dead Queens by Alexa Dunn. Full disclosure, I am friends with Alexa, so know that. But I will tell you that this is, I think, far and away her best book. I've read 3 of her books so far, and they keep getting better. This one, I think, is the best book she's written that I've read. I think the plotting is great, the theming is great, and just, it's such a cool setting and such a cool premise. It's basically a YA take on Murder, She Wrote, or sort of like Small Town Secrets. So we have a dual, it does what I like, which is it's not an actual dual timeline, but it's investigating a murder from the past and the present timeline because a new murder has happened that our main character thinks is connected. I think it deals with grief in a great way. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really like this book, but I do acknowledge she's a friend, so that could unconsciously be biasing my opinion, but you know, take it for what it's worth. But I'm really excited for that one. So that comes out on October 4th. And then Station Eternity by Mur Lafferty also comes out on October 4th, and I liked it. Now, on the same topic, this is also a take on Murder, She Wrote, or sort of the idea of Jessica Fletcher being a magnet for murder, but this one takes place in space. So our main character is on a space station, which she has fled to because she feels like everywhere she goes, humans die around her, so she has gone someplace where there are basically no humans. But then a group of humans is coming, and once again, murder, you know, she encounters murder once again. I had a little bit of a problem with sort of the flow of the book, but I think it was a really fun premise. It was very well thought out, I thought, as a book. And yeah, I love a sci-fi mystery, which I think Mur Lafferty does a good job with those. So I thought it was good. It seems like it's going to be a series, so I would read the next one. And that also comes out on October 4th. The only other one I had for October is Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This is one where it is a horror novel about werewolves, and I wanted to try it because Rachel Harrison, I think, writes sort of lighter versions of horror, and I'm intrigued by that as a vibe. So I was intrigued by the back copy. I like werewolf stories. This felt like maybe an interesting place to give her a go. So we'll see. I have kind of no expectations going into it. So we'll see if those non-expectations are met or not. Wait, I do have more for October. I just got confused. Those were the arcs that I've already read or have on my pile to read, but I do have a couple of other ones for October. So there's a Rosie Danan book called Up to No Good, which I know nothing about, that is supposed to come out on October 4th. I don't know if that will actually happen, but I really liked the intimacy experiment from Rosie Danan last year, so I'm intrigued to try another contemporary romance from her. I feel like she writes very modern romances, like the characters in them feel like they have very modern sensibilities, especially towards sex and dating, so I really liked that, and I would like to try more from her. On the 4th, there is also Blitz by Danielle O'Malley. So The Rook is one of my all-time favorite books. The sequel to The Rook was Stiletto, and I'm gonna say that that was not necessarily wholly successful to me, considering how long it was. Like, I think as its own book, I liked it, but as a sequel to The Rook, I'm not sure. But I love The Rook so much that I think that this is the final book in the trilogy. Like, I don't think there's going to be more after this. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But Blitz, I'm going to read because I just love The Rook so much that if there's any more stories in this world, I will just keep reading them probably no matter what. Especially considering it takes a very long time for these to come out. I'm assuming that I don't feel like that's too much to sign myself up for to read. And then on the 18th is a book called Lavender House by Lev A.C. Rosen. And I put this on my list because the tagline says, "A delicious story from a new voice in suspense. Lev A.C. Rosen's Lavender House is Knives Out with a queer historical twist." And I can't tell if this is meant to be YA or not. Okay, no. It says first adult book. Okay, yeah. So this is an adult book. I don't know. I just think that that sounds like such a cool setup. I'm a sucker for anything that has a comp to Knives Out. And I like the idea of it being queer and historical. So yeah, we'll see. I know nothing really about this, but I'm intrigued, particularly if I start seeing some good reviews of it. I think I will probably go ahead and pick that up. And then last, on the 25th, we have the third book in the Singing Hills cycle from Niveau, and that is Into the Riverlands. I've only read The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I need to read When the Tiger Comes Down the Mountain, and then I also, when I do that, would like to read Into the Riverlands. I really love Niveau's sort of like imagination and her writing. It's just beautiful. So yeah, excited to see that that series seems to be ongoing. Okay, and then it seems like we've got a nice like crop of them in November. On the 8th, we have Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. This sounds like a couples retreat gone wrong. Locked room mystery seems to be one of the buzzwords for it, and all of that sounds like my kind of mystery. So yeah, I've never read anything from Lisa Unger, but I feel like she's quite prolific, so I'm assuming that it's at least a competently done book, and that's my kind of story. So yeah, that one I am going to, I think, give a try. I may get that from the library. A Sliver of Darkness by C.J. Tudor. That is one that is a short story collection from C.J. Tudor, who I've read 2 books from now. I really enjoyed, oh gosh, what was it called? Burning Girls, I think. I really liked that one, and I thought The Chalk Man was good, not great, but I really liked the overall vibe of both of those stories. So I am a lover of short stories. So yeah, I'm gonna get an arc. Oh, no. I already have my arc of that one, so I will definitely read that. There's also the third book in the Fallen Empire series from Grace Draven, which is called Raven Unveiled. This is a fantasy romance series that I think is as fantasy as it is romance, which that can be kind of hard to find. Grace Draven, I feel like, is the master of fantasy romance. Start with Radiance from her. But if you like that, I have really enjoyed this trilogy that she's been working on, or the series she's been working on. Also, the covers are gorgeous. So yeah, I'm not sure what the synopsis of this one is, but I just really like Grace Draven and I like that series. So I'm going to continue on in that one, and that comes out on the 8th. On the 15th is Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. I really love, spoiler alert from her, Liked but didn't love the sequel, but again, I really just like her sensibilities in storytelling, so I'm excited to give Shipwrecked a go. Okay, while I was changing my battery, a gigantic storm looks like it's rolling in, so we need to hustle so that this audio is usable. So I think I was wrapping up talking about Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. Yeah, just I really like her writing. I'm into sort of her overall voice and project. It's always very body neutral, fat friendly. So if you're looking for like a good plus size romance author, I think Olivia Dade is a good one. Also on the 15th is Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse. Now look, you know that on this channel we stand Rebecca Roanhorse. She is an auto buy for me. I love her imagination. I love her writing. I like the kind of characters she builds. I love her plots. And this one I believe is like a old-timey mystery fantasy, like a fantasy with a mystery plot. So it's a novella. I have a copy of it. I need to read it. And then the last one for November is on the 22nd, and it's called All the Blood We Share. Can I also just say that I'm realizing in this discussion that I'm a sucker for good taglines on books. Like when they have a good sort of elevator pitch, it seems like I'm very susceptible to that. But this says, a sinister novel based on the real Bloody Benders, a family of serial killers in the Old West, bound by butchery and obscured by the shadows of American history. So this sounds like old-timey serial killers. That sounds rad. So yeah, I don't know anything about this author, but I really like an Old West kind of setting. I'm into murderousness, so this is perfect for me. And then finally, I've only got 2 for December. So first we have Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca. This is the next in her Ren Fair small town romance. Like these are contemporary romances all based around like life at this Ren Fair that this town puts on every year. So I have really enjoyed these. None of them have been as good to me as the first one, which is Well Met. That is like an iconic contemporary romance to me, but I've enjoyed the whole series. This one is a little bit of a harder sell for me trope-wise because it's like high-powered city gal meeting the small town boy who's kind of a slacker. Like that's not always my favorite trope. So we'll see, but I like her writing and I really like that world, so I just keep reading that series. I think it's just a fun series. It feels very cozy to me, so I'm gonna pick that up for December. And then the last one comes out on December 13th. It's by Adiba Jaigirdar, I think is how you say the last name. And it's called A Million to One. It is YA, and again, tagline, the pitch on this is, the author of one of Time's best YA books of all time gives Titanic an Ocean's 8 makeover in a heist for a treasure aboard the infamous ship that sank in the Atlantic many years ago. And it's like a crew. It's on something about the, like they're trying to find this treasure on the Titanic. It's YA. I don't know. This just seems like it would be really fun. So yeah, I'm into a YA heist kind of deal. I am realizing from this list, I've taken a hard turn from YA fantasy, which makes sense if you've seen the vlog that went up this week, taken a hard turn from YA fantasy being anticipated to YA mystery. Some of that may just be that it's getting pushed more, but yeah, anyway, that seems to be a trend. So those are the only 2 that I have on the list for December. And overall, not a small list, but I definitely have had larger lists in the past. So like I said, I feel like a lot of books, but it is actually possible I could read all of these. So way to keep your expectations reasonable, Mara. So I think we beat the storm just barely. Let me know if you are looking forward to any of the books that I talked about. Let me know if there's any books you're looking forward to that were not on this list. And yeah, I think that will do it for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon.